Hi, I'm seeing two very distinct camps at the moment with regards to martial arts and being a bouncer, door supervisor, whichever you want to call it now. Let's just call it a bouncer for the sake of what we know what it is, right? It's interesting because on the one hand, you've got a group of martial arts instructors that are very much poo-pooing the skill set that you can acquire through working in security when you do it correctly, right? They feel somehow threatened by that when somebody like myself says, oh, I've spent many, many years working the doors. Is that the only route to understanding? Of course not. Does that guarantee understanding? No. Does it? No, it doesn't, right? It's just another way of trying to learn, right? So when we say about being a bouncer, right? Now, I was a bouncer for a long time in lots of different places, a lot of inner city places, a lot of city centre places, and a lot of gang culture, a lot of crime. You know, I've worked in some pretty, I think shitholes is the term you would use, right? So during the course of that, I didn't just stand on a door and throw out unsuspecting drunks, which is the first thing that people throw out. And they're like, yeah, what do you learn? You know, tossing out drunks, you're just a bully. Actually, not the truth at all, for the most part. Now, there are always exceptions to everything that I say, right? But here's the thing, right? When I first started looking to do the doors, my mentor in this actually said to me, imagine you're stood on a door, right? And the worst person you know, we all know one, right? Imagine the worst family, the worst person, the worst violent person you know. And then imagine that person with 3 or 4 of his mates who are all equally as difficult, right, and challenging. And the only thing stopping them coming into your premises and doing whatever they want is you, okay? So straight away, there's actually a level to this that is often dismissed by people who've never done it, okay? So to do it doesn't actually mean you're a bully, okay? There are bullies in there in the same way that there are bullies in martial arts, and I'm really sorry if that annoys some people, but the truth is I've been around martial arts a very long time, and I often see bullying behaviour within martial arts. I often see that kind of stuff, the kind of thing that we proclaim to not allow. I watch it every day on social media unfolding before my very eyes. So let's be clear, bullying is across the, you know, across all parties, right? Okay, but you don't have to be a bully to be a bouncer. Now, actually, quite often, what it actually means is you've got to acquire some pretty serious mental toughness. Not necessarily physical toughness, although that is a very big plus in this world, but a mental toughness, because you've got to be able to meet whatever challenges you're greeted with, right? That could be 30 off-duty squaddies on a stag do, or just a big old-fashioned piss-up. It could be a bunch of guys on a stag do that's come from somewhere else, right? And they don't give a toss what they do in that particular town because, hey, they're only there for the weekend and they think that gives them carte blanche to do as they please, okay? You've got the local bullies, you've got the local criminals, you've got, you know, the bad boys, the wannabes, the local hard man in the various areas, especially when you're working in a city centre kind of place like that, because all of the outlying areas in a big city like, say, Bristol, they've all got their local hard men and they've all got their people that have got a reputation and something to prove. And usually it's on you that they want to prove it. Okay, so when you're looking at that, it's not just about throwing out drunk people, okay? There is an element of that, but actually what you're really doing is you're stopping the small minority from ruining it for the vast majority, okay? It's a very, very underappreciated job role. Now, let's get down to why it's important, or I think it's important, or where it has value, right? Now, this again isn't to dismiss anybody else or what they do, quite the opposite. This is just to show where I found value in it, okay? Now, first and foremost, one of the things that's really, really relevant is when we talk about soft skills. Now, you hear this all the time, and I trained this for years. I taught people this for years. You know, conflict management, communication skills, all that kind of thing, confidence speaking, right? I've spent years teaching people all that sort of thing, and those skills were honed on the doors working as a bouncer, working in security, okay? De-escalation skills, de-escalation tactics, right? They became the go-to, the bread and butter. Now, that's something I think that is totally underestimated by the vast majority of people, because you know, when you read a lot of these books where they talk about, you know, I used to be a bouncer kind of thing, all they really talk about is the fights that they got into, the physical fights, when in actual fact, that's like 1% of what you actually do. A large proportion of what you actually do is de-escalate violence and violent people. Okay, so your role is to basically achieve that and bring things down. So you get very, very, very good at conflict management. You get very good at handling your emotions and your fear, and you get very good at finding solutions to problems. Now, when we talk about soft skills and we talk about the principles of soft skills, I could give you that in a PowerPoint in 5 minutes flat, right? Great. Will you understand it? Unlikely. Okay, will practicing it in a fake setup, such as a sports hall or a club, it will help a little bit. And the reason I say a little bit, because you know in your mind that it's not real. You know that it's fake. You know that it's pretend. You know that it's set up. Okay, you know that there isn't a genuine consequence at the end of it. Okay, you can still actually affect a lot of people on a subconscious level at that point and really get into their head with it, right? But the truth be told is that it's only a surface skim on that, right? And then the second thing that's really, really important is that everybody is different. So I'm different to you, you're different to somebody else, so on and so forth. And so we're all gonna utilize those skills differently, right? So as an example of that, if I was 5'6" and I weighed 10 stone, okay, and I wasn't a very big guy, I would have to approach this differently, both in the physical way, where the way I maintain distance, the way I control people, the way I protect myself and others, and also mentally with regards to how I'm going to approach that situation, yeah, because it will be different. And so it's no good me saying to you, you've got to do exactly what I do, because it will be done differently. Now that's where you learn, that's where the value is, because you're honing that skill day after day, night after night, right? I worked full-time for years, and I was on nightclub doors, 5-6 nights a week, every night of the week. And I was also doing events, corporate stuff, festivals, day in, day out, right? Bailiff stuff. So essentially, I spent a lot of years dealing with confrontation, literally on a daily basis, right? That's not to glamorify it. That's not to glorify it. That's not to, that's not to make it sound like romantic and exciting, because that's not what any of those things are. And that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that during that time, I learned on the ground properly how to utilize a lot of these principles and concepts, right? You cannot get that through practice, okay? You can only get that through trial and error and actually doing it, right? And I'm sorry if anybody disagrees with that, but that's just the way that I see the world, okay? So that isn't to dismiss anybody else's skill set, quite the opposite. I'm not saying that one bit. I'm just saying that for me, my understanding was absolutely enhanced by doing that role, by working in those fields, by not only working in those fields, but becoming a trainer for well over 10 years where I taught thousands upon thousands of people these skills. Okay, so that's where I honed all of that, and that's why it's important to me. So when I talk about things like this and I say, yes, I've done martial arts, but I've also worked the door, I'm not saying it as a way to put anyone else down. So I'm not saying I'm better than somebody who hasn't worked the door. That's not it at all. What I am saying is, because of that time spent doing that and working in those kind of places and doing those kind of jobs, I've managed to get a lot of live experience of how those things work. And when we're talking about pantomime violence, when we're talking about pre-attack cues, when we're talking about triggers, when we're talking about manipulation, when we're talking about subconscious behavioral patterns and triggers, when we're talking about all of those things, right? Doing it in the moment when you've got somebody in front of you that actually, is not against smacking you in the face, right? When you're doing it there like that live and there's a consequence to that, you get better at it. It's that simple. So this isn't a rant, quite the opposite, but what it is just to say that, for those martial arts people out there that are like poo-pooing people that have worked the doors and dismissing it, don't, because there's a lot of value in it. But in the same vein, just because somebody's worked the doors doesn't mean they know all about everything. Quite the opposite. It depends on an awful lot of factors. You know, how long they work the doors, where they work the doors, their particular skill set within that. So you've got guys that have worked the doors, right, that have stood on a smoking area door and have never really done anything, right? Whereas on the other side of the coin, you've got people that have been very, very deeply embedded into dangerous stuff for years. All right, see you later.